If you're someone who's trying to build something from nothing while carrying real responsibilities in your personal life, this conversation's for you, because success is not built when life is easy. It's built when life is demanding more from you. Today, I'm sitting down with someone who represents what it truly means to be disciplined, resilient, and committed to growth. His name is Ryan Carney, and I've had the pleasure of being his coach since October of 2024 as an elite client with the Tom Ferry ecosystem. And I've had a front row seat to his growth, his discipline, and his commitment to becoming the best version of himself. In his first 6 months in real estate, he secured 35 listings through Vulcan 7, which resulted in him being highlighted as one of Tom Ferry's outliers in his podcast. He continues to grow, he continues to build a team, and now is leveraging AI at a high level to create opportunities faster than ever. But beyond the business, Ryan is a son. He's a son who shows up for his family, a leader in his community. He's an aspiring artist, and someone who is committed to sharpening his mind, his body, and his soul daily. This is not just a conversation about real estate. This is about who you have to become to win. Ryan, hello. Thank you for joining. Before we get started into your business, who is Ryan? Who is Ryan at your core? Who are you?
Yeah, so appreciate you for having me. At my core, I am a small town kid from Western New York. Big city dreams. Love to hustle, love to grind. Love to just be passionate about something and chase it. I care about those who I care about, and I'm willing to go to whatever lengths I need to protect them, and I'm also willing to go to those same lengths to achieve a dream. So.
I love it. I love it. So what shaped you into the person that you are today?
Um, I think sports has a lot to do with it. Like I grew up and that's all I knew. I played baseball, I played basketball, I played football and basketball in college. And then I'd also tried out for the Pittsburgh Pirates as well. So huge sports background, and I think that really shaped the mentality that I have today with business and just, loving to grind and loving to go, into the trenches and overcome obstacles. I think that sports taught me a lot about life and a lot about adversity and how to deal with it. And I think that is directly related to what I see on a day-to-day in the business world.
I could totally see that. I could totally see that. So how has taking care of your mother influenced the way you show up in life and in your business?
It forced me to grow up at an early age. When my mom had her stroke, I was only 16 years old, and I remember that I was sitting there with my family, and the doctor came up to me, of all people. Her mother was there, her brothers, her boyfriend at the time, and asked me, if they should do the surgery. They put a stent into her brain, and I was 16 years old. I was just barely into puberty at that point. So it forced me to grow up, and just it really taught me about what matters in life. When you go through an experience like that, it wasn't my life that I saw flash before my eyes, but it was somebody obviously who I care about deeply. And whenever that happens, it really puts things into perspective for you and makes you realize, as much as I do love this business, there's certain things that one day I won't be able to bring back, my mother being one of those. So, I think it taught me a much greater appreciation for life and, that everything's not as serious as we may make it seem at times. So.
Not at all. Not at all. My God, that is incredible. At 16, that is
Yeah.
a lot to deal with at that age. Uh, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. That having those scares, like you said, it makes you realize what's important in life. And you got to learn that pretty early on, my friend.
I did. I did. But
Well, now when we talk about your breakthrough, I mean, let's talk about what's gotten everybody's attention. 35 listings in your first 6 months. Ryan, that's not normal. Walk us through this. Like, what were you doing daily? Everybody's asking, what did he do daily? The mindset that you had, and what most agents are not willing to do.
Yeah, I think like it goes back to grinding. I grew up, so to speak, in my business career in a call center. So I'm very comfortable with cold outreach, cold calling, cold texting, whatever the case may be. So I had my mortgage licenses and I was dually licensed for a little bit. And when I first got my salesperson license at the end of 2023, I just started kind of messing around and I started making cold calls. I just went to Zillow, looked up for sale by owners, and I just started dialing the numbers and I started having some really good conversations. So naturally, being the person that I am, whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best at it. So, that competitive instinct kicked in and I started doing research and surfing around on YouTube and I stumbled across Vulcan 7. So I had a call with them and they pitched me on it and I signed up for like a 1 month trial. It was a couple $100 or whatever it was. And as soon as I started it, it was like everything kind of took off and, I was surprised. It almost felt too good to be true because I was just having so many quality conversations. And the first couple months, I was still mortgage heavy and that was my main focus because that was what was bringing in the money. And anybody who's been in the real estate business, like you can come in day one, but that doesn't mean you're making money day one, right? So I knew that I had to ease into it, but I started having these conversations and everything was just going really, really well. And then I had a really good bad month in mortgages. I had closed over. I think it was like 10 transactions for over 1 million, which was my biggest month since I had reactivated my licenses. But it came with every headache you could imagine. And the real estate side of it was going so well that at that moment I decided to just go all in and I just started to make dials. I amplified, my output. And eventually that led me to texting more so than calling. And I started just texting manually and then I had a VA do it, and it's just gradually grown from there. But I think the biggest thing was, I was just willing to dive in, and I started, and I didn't know where I was going to go, but I started having a good conversation, and that led me here. And then I tried this path, and I started making cold calls, and then that led me to Vulcan, and then I got to Vulcan, and then that led me to texting, and it was, just kind of this domino effect. But, I think the biggest thing where I see, especially today, I have had a lot of these conversations with agents, asking me, what was it? And it was really just taking that first step and not overthinking it. Because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they overwhelm themselves with all the different what ifs and they never
Right.
started. And
It's
whereas
interesting that you said you were easing your way into 35 listings in 6 months. But yes, 100%, everyone asks, what's the secret sauce? And realistically, it has to do with you. You started with the mindset. You had the right mindset, like, I'm going to get this done. And
yeah,
you stayed consistent with it and disciplined with it. So it wasn't like you just dabbled. You had specific time of the day every day where you were doing it.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's huge. And then with the follow-up, what was the hardest part of that season with the follow-up? Did you ever doubt yourself?
I mean, you just said it. The hardest part is the consistency behind it because it's a very monotonous task that you could go days on end with just having bland conversations or getting told to hit the road, for lack of a better term. So being able to take that and just roll with the punches because on the other side of those punches is that yes, and that one opportunity that you're looking for that makes it all worth it. So, um, what was the question?
No, and no, but you did answer it. Like the hardest part of that season, and if you ever doubted yourself, there's so many people that ask, like, what kept you going? Because most others would have quit.
Yeah, I think we all go through moments where self-doubt kicks in, myself included. I've grown enough to now be able to recognize it and understand that I'll unpack it and like, why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? Like, is it because you're tired? Is it because you've been dealing with stuff in your personal life? Is it, what's the root cause of this? And I think being able to recognize that is very important because when I was younger and a little bit less experience, I would take that and let it spiral into partying or impulse
Mm,
traveling or purchases or whatever the case may be. And that leads you down a whole nother path. But now I'm able to recognize it and take a deep breath, and whether I need to take a day off or go take a nap or go for a walk or whatever that case may be, whatever I'm feeling in the moment. I don't let that doubt settle. I
yes.
take it and recognize it and say, okay, cool. This is a feeling for the moment, but it's gonna pass, just like a rainstorm or what have you. And I move on. So I think the ability to really recognize it is the number one thing.
And I love that you do that, actually, that you take a moment, take a breather if you need it. I do want to talk about discipline over talent because you're someone who is extremely disciplined. I mean, we've talked about 75 strong to fasting to reading. Why is discipline such a big part of your life?
I mean, without discipline, you can't really get anything accomplished, truly, or at least the dreams that I have. I'm a man of many aspirations. I also make music and enjoy chasing that journey as well. I'm very passionate about real estate. I love to travel. I love to do all these things. And in order to do all these things, if I'm not disciplined, then they all sacrifice. So I think for me, anyways, that because I am so ambitious and have so many goals and dreams, that without discipline, I can't get those done, and that pains me on the inside. But even from a you know general perspective, I don't think you can be successful without discipline.
I was
Um,
going to ask you that. I was going to ask, do you believe your success came from skill or discipline?
Combination. What's the old saying? Oh my goodness. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So you have all the talent in the world, but if you're not disciplined, then it's only going to take you so far. And I've seen that, in my athletic career, I look back and there's some areas, some sports where I don't feel like I worked as hard as I could have. I don't feel like I was as disciplined, and that bothers me, right? So I never want to move forward in life and carry that feeling with me elsewhere. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. Um, so yeah,
So, what are the non-negotiables in your daily routine?
the non-negotiables. Well, the first thing is just getting up. Uh, I do have a very early wake up. I get up at 3:45. That works for me. I love it. But if I don't get up in the morning, nothing else happens the way that I want it to. So that's number one is just getting up and being present and being grateful. Especially as real estate agents, we deal with a lot of chaos. A lot of fires get put out. You deal with a lot of personalities, a lot of different types of people. So just remembering again, back to what we talked about just a couple minutes ago, like what's really important in life. It's very easy to get thrown off and to take a conversation the wrong way while you have a bunch of other stuff going on and to immediately react. But I really try and focus on making sure that no matter what it is, I'm present in this day and just thankful to have the opportunity to fail or to make something happen.
Absolutely. So, what does a winning day look like for you?
A winning day. So I have I have a trackable answer to that, and then I also have
Yes,
um,
you better.
no, I think so I have like what I call win the day, which involves 10 contacts, 10 conversations, going through my pipeline review. There's that metric based successful day, but then there's also the successful day that just looks like you got up on time, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're chasing a dream. And I think it's important to have both because there's days where I don't win the metric based day, right? But it's not always a failure. So you gotta, give yourself some grace from time to time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let's go from mindset and personal development. You've been intentional about what you put into your mind, right? Books, growth, learning. What are you currently reading that's impacting you?
I really haven't been reading much lately. I'm still learning, but that time that I would normally spend reading, I'm spending on YouTube or mainly YouTube, actually, learning about whatever it is. Right now, it's AI. And I know we're going to talk about this here in a bit, but I've recently had a light bulb moment with Claude, and everything just kind of clicked. So those that time I would spend learning or reading has now been spent watching, training videos on Claude or videos of how other agents or musicians or whoever, it can be personal. I just had Claude doing bookkeeping for me yesterday, so
Okay.
I'm just trying to, soak up as much knowledge as I possibly can on not only Claude but just AI in general.
Yes. How has that personal development changed the way you think about business?
Everything. I think that's where every successful business person starts. Personally, is controlling your mind and going through that personal development journey. The first book that was ever put in front of me on the personal development side of things was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I
Mhm.
remember, I read it and I think it was 2015. And I remember to this day, how that book shaped me and the path that it led me on. And, there's been several very impactful books in my journey, but personal development was what made me into the business person that I am. It's what made me want to get up every morning. It's what made me want to be disciplined, because you listen to these stories and they all start from a similar place. Some of them might have been rich, some of them might have been poor, some of them were in between, but they all had that desire to learn and to get better. And I think that's where success is rooted, is just really the desire to want more and to be successful. And, you know, personal development, whether it's through books, masterminds, whatever the case may be, it's so vital to growth. There's a John Maxwell quote: "If you're not growing, you're dying." I really believe that, and it's something that I think I'll focus, make it a priority of mine till the day that I do that.
Absolutely. Now, what would you tell someone who's stuck mentally right now?
Reading is a great place to start. You got to find your routine, I think, and I think self-reflection is huge, and just being able to unpack and understand why it is the way that you're feeling, the way that you're feeling. There's, times in life where I would just react, and not be conscious of, there's something going on back here that's causing you to react this way. And, as you get older and you go through more experience, I think you start to be able to reflect a little bit more and a little bit more effectively. And I think I've gotten to that point where rather than react in the moment, I will take time to reflect and say, okay, well, let's unpack this. What's going on here? And when you can
Yes.
have those conversations with yourself, you become so much more powerful.
Oh, totally agree with that. Well, you mentioned AI. Okay, let's talk about something that's changing the game right now. You recently implemented Claude, as you mentioned, and co-work to text leads through. Talk to me about all of that.
Yeah, so I really just not stumbled upon Claude. Like I knew what Claude was, but I had been seeing so much I got my algorithm trained, very well, to where it was showing me all these reels and these reels and these reels about Claude. And I hear you talk about Claude and some other people. And I'm like, all right, maybe I should look into this. And I did. And I just started messing around with it. Like I was just literally sitting here on my
I
phone
like when
talking
you
to
say
it.
messing around. That's the same thing you said with calls. You were messing around
I
and you
was.
already booked an appointment like on your first week with it.
Yeah, so I was on a call. I have some guys that I work with who help me on with Go High Level, and they're very AI oriented. So we had a call. We've been trying to figure this out for a while, how to get really chat GPT to interact with leads so that I can, focus on other things. And it can tee me up for calls. And so I started telling him about all the wins that I was having with Claude, and we were on the call. I was like, you know what, let's just see how hard it would be to set up. And we set it up within an hour, and it had it texting leads that hadn't been responded to. And amazingly, interacting just how I would. And this was 30, 45 minutes of setting up. So once that happened, it obviously had its kinks and things that needed to get worked out. So I spent a couple of days really diving into my process and diving into when I follow up, how I close, how I tee it up, whatever the case may be. And I built this comprehensive system that I just started testing today. But I mean, even through 2 days of testing, it's already booked 2 appointments for me, and have I mean it's literally working as we speak, and I'm getting notifications on my phone that it's interacting with clients, and it updates me and asks me questions when it doesn't know what to do. And I'm at the very infant stages of my learning with this, so it's just really really exciting because I mean, any successful agent, any agent period, like we have so many different things that we have to juggle. And being any type of entrepreneur, you have a personal life, you have your business life, you have all these different things to juggle. So your time is so precious. And anything that can add value enough to give you some of that time back is
Huge,
extremely valuable, extremely huge.
huge.
So I'm a full-blown addict right now.
Yeah, we constantly hear about this, and I know that you made that decision. I mean, you joined the AI Marketing Academy, and we've talked about different things that we can implement and taking one thing at a time. For someone watching this who feels completely overwhelmed with AI, which many people do because they're trying to do 10 things, learn 10 different AIs at once, where would you say they should start? Especially let's say an agent right now, it could be anybody, but where would you say someone should start with AI?
Yeah, so I was actually just having this conversation with somebody who I work with because they didn't know where to start. It's like, I was coming to them, I was so geeked and hyped up because I had done all this stuff and I was overwhelming them, but I was word vomiting on them because I was so excited. And I quickly realized how overwhelmed they were, and like, shell shocked. They look like deer in headlights. And what I told him was like, just start talking to it. Just explain whatever it is that's going on and what you want to fix. It doesn't have to be anything business related. It can be with life, but just talk to
Right.
it and be very thorough in your explanation of what's happening. What are you currently doing? Like, what was your process to get there? Like, how do you feel about it now? Where do you want to go? And just have a conversation. And I started with email, I think. And or no, excuse me. I had to create a proposal for a self-storage facility I was trying to buy. And I was like, hey, I'd taken all these notes and I was like, let me just put it in a Claude and see what it can, uh, cook up for me. And it created a HTML artifact in minutes. That was, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was crazy. And then the next thing I was like, well, I'm spending a lot of time in my email, and I delegated to my VA, and now she's spending a lot of time in there, and that's taking her away from other stuff. And I'm like, let me just see how easy this would be. And I connected it to my Gmail and my Google Calendar and my Google Drive, and now it filters my email. And that led me to, okay, well, can it connect to my CRM? And that's how I got it texting. And it started with something super, super small. And that's where I'm like, all right, so you don't know where to start. What's your simplest problem? Let's go talk to
And you
Claude.
even mentioned about tax season, right? There's so many different tasks that we are all on a daily basis doing on our own. And then when you just apply it to AI, just as you mentioned, I uploaded all of my bank statements for different entities and I said, give me a P&L. And within minutes it did. And I was just floored. I'm like, you know how much time typically this would take? And for every single entity, it was able to give it to me. And then I was like, all right, now give me my entire, P&L for everything that I own. And it just put it all together. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I contacted my accountant and I was like, look at this. He was like, this is great. It
Yeah.
very, very little adjustments did I have to make to it. And yes, I did review it to make sure. And of course, my accountant did. But I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So think about this. Do you believe agents who don't adopt to AI will be left behind?
Absolutely. I don't, it's not if, but when.
Mm.
There's no stopping it. You can fight it and you can not like it as much as you want, but I mean it's from everything I've heard, it's like the internet, or it's like, when smartphones came out, it's like, of course there's going to be resistance initially because it's new, it's different, it's
Right.
challenging our the way we've seen life for forever. And so there's a lot of like I said, resistance, but if if you're an agent and you're not even if you're not using it at all, you're done. You know,
Exactly. I remember the first iPhone and I had my BlackBerry and I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not letting go of this thing. I was so addicted to my BlackBerry. And then it's just change. Any kind of change is scary. And I'm like, is it
right.
going to slow me down? But, at the end of the day, we all have to pivot. We all have to be able to adjust.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of adjusting, okay, you are not only building a business, you're building a team. You're not just producing, okay? What does growth look like for you right now?
Um, yeah, it's consistently putting others before myself. I have my own pipeline that I'm growing and that is very demanding, but I also have people who rely on me and look at me as the team leader, and that comes with new challenges and new obstacles. And I had a couple stints as a quote unquote team leader in mortgages, which, looking back, there's a lot of things that I would wish I would have done differently. And this gives me an opportunity to correct those and continue to grow. So it forces me to grow in areas that I may not desire to grow in. Uh,
Yeah.
because I'm not just dealing with my problems, but it's great to learn because I learned stuff that I can apply to my own business, to my own personal life. One day I hope to be a father. There's things that can be applicable towards that. So it's just taking like I said, the step back and always putting somebody else before your business and all the problems that you have. And some days it's a lot more difficult than others, but it's rewarding when you see somebody going through a struggle and going through a challenging time, and you're able to help them through that, and then seeing the joy on their faces when they overcome that adversity and they grow. And it's a different type of um, internal joy than it is, when you just overcome something for yourself. So.
Absolutely. And you said something very important as a team leader, putting everyone else's needs before yours. So, what are you focusing on as you build your team?
Systems and processes, SOPs are the biggest thing. Just really trying to be very disciplined in the way that we do things, very organized, and documenting everything so that, trying to think ahead. Right now, there's only a couple of us, so we're a small team, but that's not where we plan to stay. So we're approaching the point where we are ready to start growing, and when that time comes and you bring other agents on, I don't want to bring an agent on into a situation where they're walking into a dumpster fire and I don't know how to, I don't know where this or that is, and I don't know how to train you and where these documents go and what the process looks like. So not trying to obsess over it to the point where it becomes analysis paralysis and it stops me
Right.
from recruiting, but getting it to a point where I'm confident that I can come to, hey, Jessica, I'm ready to bring you on as an agent and you're going to have a good experience and you're going to say, hey, you should come join Ryan's team because Ryan knows what he's doing, and that's the experience that I want whoever works with me to have. So just trying to get that prepared and ready to go.
So, tell me, what mistakes should agents avoid when they start growing?
I don't think you should avoid mistakes. I think you should lean into them.
Mm,
The more mistakes you make, the more you learn. The faster you fail, the faster you grow. So I'm all for learning. I say there's no losses in life, only lessons, and I really believe that, and I try and live that. So I fail a lot. I'm a risk taker. Of course, in hindsight, everything's 2020, but I think I've been able to get where I'm at and get 35 listings in a month, not because I'm sitting here scared to fail or scared to make a call or scared to respond to a text or take that $1 million listing. Like I'd rather tell the story about how I failed than, talk about what if I would have done this, and that's always
right.
been my perspective with everything that I do. So.
Absolutely. Well, you're balancing business and real life responsibilities, taking care of your mother. I mean, how do you stay strong when you have that level of responsibility?
Um, I'm very fortunate to have a good support system, so that helps. But I think it really comes back to just being present and being grounded and staying centered and where you're at and just knowing, I believe whatever's meant to be is going to be and control. My mom always told me, control what you can control. And,
Absolutely.
that's one thing that I've really taken with me, and I wasn't always good at it. Even up to a few years ago, where I always felt that I had full control over whatever it is what I was doing, and then when it didn't go my way, I would become frustrated, flustered, and it would get me off track. And now, obviously, we're all going to deal with unfortunate events, but you just have to realize that it's going to happen to everybody, and you just have to roll with the punches and control what you can control, and stay optimistic, and eventually the rain will pass.
Your mom sounds like a really smart lady.
She is.
Uh, do you think that responsibility has made you better?
Absolutely. Um, I mean, in this business, as I think anybody in this business knows, you get thrown curveballs 24/7 every day. It's like, I'm learning something new, putting out a new fire. And, so when that happens, can become very overwhelming very quickly. And having, bigger responsibilities, again, it just puts things into perspective that, when a title issue arises or an insurance issue or a mortgage issue or whatever the case may be, you know, there's bigger things to life and
You have a bigger
understand
why.
exactly. And, everything figures itself out.
You
So
are also very deeply connected to your community with your Juneteenth events, your passion for music. I mean, how important is it for you to give back?
extremely. I come from a place where there's not a lot of people that look like me, and there's not a lot of people who have the aspirations that I do. And if they do, they get killed quickly because they don't have an outlet to allow them to believe that it's able to come from a place like this and make it in whatever you want. It doesn't have to be real estate, music, whatever. I mean, you name it, you can dream it, go for it. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, and is creating a culture that I wish I could have had. And it's cool to see and talk to people who are inspired, by um, what I do, and being able to live and be successful in the real estate world, but also, chase a music dream and, travel the world and do what I do. So extremely important. It's very, very cool to, we've given almost $10,000 away in scholarships the last few years that we've raised, and it's taxing. There's a lot of work, but
It's
it's
not a small event.
no, it's not at all. And but it's rewarding. It's cool to see, the kids and the families impacted and just leaving something positive behind, I think is always cool.
So beautiful, honestly. And you mentioned music. How does music play a role in your life and in your mindset?
It's the one place that allows me to escape, and it's like therapy for me. I don't know. I grew up raised by a single mother, so I'm a mixed kid. I don't know the black half of my family, so I had a lot of questions growing up, and I was very shy as a kid. And music was always just kind of like the place where I went to where I felt safe. And then when I started making music, it was just like a place where I released that energy. And now it's that and more. It's a passion. It's a challenge. It reminds me of what sports used to give me from a competitive standpoint, and so it's one of those things where it started off as something that I just enjoyed to do, and then quickly my competitive instinct kicked in, and if I take it to huge heights, cool. But if not, I'm cool with just putting it out there and allowing myself a place to go through my own version of therapy.
I was going to say, if real estate wasn't the path, would music have been?
I don't know. My path is my path. This was meant to be, so this is what I'm on.
Well, you've definitely had success, but we always know that success comes with some challenges. What has been one of your toughest moments so far?
Toughest moment so far.
Yeah.
Um,
And how did you push through it?
I think not sometimes setting big goals and not achieving them can be discouraging. Uh, I have, like I said, a very ambitious nature. So I think not I'm growing extremely fast, and I don't want to sound, cocky or anything, but I still have heights that I want to reach that I haven't yet. And there's been times where that gets a little frustrating. And but again, control what you can control and just trust the journey. When that's supposed to happen for me, it's going to, and I believe that. But it's very easy to get discouraged along the way, and when things don't happen when you want them to happen and how you want them to happen, to not falling victim to thinking that maybe you're not on the right path, because I've done that before and it's taken me down the wrong way. So
We've talked about that. We've talked about that. And if you think about what you just said, right? Having that ambitious goal and not hitting it. But if you hit it, it wasn't high enough.
yeah, it's
It
true.
wasn't a high enough goal. It's always good to constantly be, trying to achieve more. Tom always says double it. So many people have a very low goal, and he's like, double it. You can do more than that.
Yeah,
I think that, ultimately you have done an amazing job. I know you're hard on yourself. And I know that we always want more, but it's in due time, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Not our timing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do when you don't feel like showing up?
um I look myself in the mirror, and I have a nice positive conversation with myself. Yeah,
By the way, Tom had us do that one year. He had us do a video to ourselves. And
really,
it was a very powerful video. And I've done it. I did it when we were in the room doing that exercise. And I also did it at home when I was alone and I can say more to myself. And I think that's really a powerful way to keep yourself going, is like that conversation to yourself when you're having that moment
yeah,
and just looking back. And I remember, every now and then I'll look back and I'm just like, I never want to see you like that again.
yeah. Yeah, no, in all seriousness, like for me, like I go for a walk, like going for a long walk or going to the gym and getting on the elliptical or the treadmill or whatever, like just spending time with myself. Because it gives you the opportunity, put the phone on DND and get away from all distractions and just give yourself the time and ability to think through it. I think a lot of times too, I know I was guilty of this. When I would go through something, I would just immediately try and move on to the next thing and not give myself the time to reflect. And
Yes.
then whatever it is that I was going through would linger, and I wouldn't understand why. And it was because and I didn't give myself enough time to unpack it. And now, having grown enough, I think it's so important to just, even if you have to cancel an appointment or cancel a trip or cancel whatever, it's so important to not let it linger and to address it immediately. And that goes, that directly translate to real estate. When you have a problem, don't let it linger because you're scared to have the conversation or you're unsure on something, attack it.
There's
And
so many people that will run from it instead of just deal with it. And I love that part of CEO Sunday, the reflection part, like what worked, what didn't this week, because you do always need time to reflect.
absolutely. I think it's the number one of the top most important things in my business anyways, is that time to not only reflect but then also vision cast.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. So for the person watching this right now, anybody who's feeling stuck, feeling overwhelmed or unsure, what do they need to stop doing?
What do they need to stop doing? Stop overthinking.
Yes.
Remember why you started. Take that time with yourself. However, you want to do that, whether it be a walk, a car ride, take yourself out to dinner, whatever works for you. But spend that time with yourself and remember why you started and why you love this in the first place. You're here for a reason, and you need to acknowledge that. And I think going back to that place will do you a lot of justice.
Absolutely. I love that. So, Ryan, when it's all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for that's a good question.
Hmm.
Um I want to be remembered for being a trailblazer and not um being confided to the social norms and what people, say or think that you should do, or placing limitations on what you can achieve. I want to, be remembered for the person who who just went for it and lived life and loved it. And whether you liked it or not, that's who I am to the core, and that's who I always want to be. So hopefully everybody feels the same.
Absolutely. This conversation wasn't just about real estate. It was about discipline. It was about your resilience, your growth, and becoming the person that you need to be to win. Ryan, I really want to thank you for your time, your transparency as well, and the value that you shared today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, and always do. So, yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. If today's conversation resonated with you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear this message. I am Jessica Rojas, and this was Real Talk on the Red Chair.